feeling depressed, of how I went about healing it completely. I wanted to bring some awareness to this issue, this topic of mental health, and also to depression itself, and what it looks like and what it feels like, as well as to give you some hope in that it can be healed, and to let you know how I healed mine. So yeah, there's a lot to cover in this video, so let's get straight into it. So I would say that I always had felt depressed since I was young, like around 12, 13. I used to have bouts of feeling depressed. And there was always a trigger. There was always something that triggered it, that I now can look back on in hindsight. At the time, I didn't know anything about triggers or anything like that. But there definitely was triggers for me that instigated those periods of depression, those bouts of depression, where I would kind of spiral down into a deep, dark hole. So this would continue. I remember the first one being when I was young, about 11, 12, and then it continued on into school, where there was various periods of feeling depressed, where I just would feel like I wouldn't want to get out of bed. My thinking was very despairing, pessimistic. I didn't have any energy. Sometimes my appetite would go. I lost interest in all the things that I usually like to do. Things like that definitely were characteristics of feeling depressed for me. And it wasn't until college when I had a really bad bout of feeling depressed, and I spiraled down into a really dark hole. And I just remember feeling like I was in so much pain, and it was really painful, and I just wanted to escape that pain. And I didn't know at the time what I was dealing with. And I just remember that night in the bathroom thinking that maybe it would be better if I took my life. I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it. But yeah, and that for me was kind of like a wake-up call, because I didn't think it was that bad until that thought came into my mind that maybe I would be better off taking my life and dying. And that really for me woke me up. That was when I decided to do something about it. I thought, okay, this is way worse than I thought it was, so I am going to have to do something about it, because at that time my fear of death was greater than I guess this pain that I had. And I was motivated to go into the doctor the next day, as that was the place where I thought, okay, well, I can just go here to get the help that I need. So I went into the doctor's office, and she said the best course of action was to try antidepressants and also counselling. So at that time I was unbelievably desperate, as you can imagine, in a lot of pain. And it was also a relief to find out what it was that I was dealing with, because before this I didn't have any idea, I didn't know. And she was the first one who put the idea of that it could be depression out there for me. And that was a relief in itself, because prior to that I didn't know what it was that I was dealing with. So then she did recommend antidepressants and counselling, so I did try the antidepressants, and I did try counselling as well. It was CBT, and I did find some relief with counselling, but I felt like it was very surface level, and it didn't go down into the depths that I needed it to go to. And I think it was 6 sessions I had over a space of a couple of months. And to be honest, I felt like it was my determination to get better that got me through. rather than the counseling itself. The antidepressants were another thing entirely. I did try them on, and the doctor had warned me that there would be horrific side effects, which there were for weeks. It was just this anxiousness, nausea, just feeling like there wasn't something right. But I thought, well, this is my only option. This is the best option, so I'm just going to take these antidepressants. But looking back now, and everything that I know now, it was those side effects were actually warnings from my body telling me that what I was putting into my body was harmful, was poisonous to my body. But at the time, I just basically shut down what my body was telling me and just kept taking the antidepressants because I thought that was the best way forward for me. But it wasn't. I was on these antidepressants for about a year, and then I decided to come off them. I felt like they really numbed me. I couldn't really feel to the extent that I usually feel. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like there was a dampener over everything, and everything was normally in Technicolor, but everything was like black, white, and grey. So after the year, the doctor had to titrate me off them. They have to, if you're on a higher dose, they kind of have to take it down a notch and then do it that way, so we can take a few months to come off them. And as I was coming off them, I suffered horrific withdrawal symptoms, and I realized that my body was actually addicted to the antidepressants, and the withdrawals were absolutely horrific, I have to say. Just emotionally, it was very difficult, and also my body as well just craved these antidepressants, and it was actually very difficult to come off them, but I did manage to come off them, thankfully. Then the other thing I did want to say was that I did notice my memory was never the same after I was on the antidepressants, because I always felt like my memory was really good, especially in conversations with people. I would always remember the exact conversation, and sometimes I would have sort of like a photographic memory, but after the antidepressants it was never as good as it was before. It was kind of a little bit slower, especially my long-term memory. I don't think my short-term memory was affected as much, but my long-term for definite was. That was one thing that I did notice about that. And it wasn't until many years later when I started my spiritual journey, which actually started off with a life coach that I went to in New Zealand, and we just sort of like talked about spiritual topics, and it was the first time that I had someone that I could talk to about these sorts of things. And I found it really helpful, and we started to dive into different things, and I started learning energy work techniques, and it was kind of guided by spirit. I started to go into my emotions and kind of sit with the emotions and sit with the energy of emotions like it was almost like a person is the only way I can put it, because I would usually feel the energy in my body, and then I would ask the energy like, what are you? Which is really unusual to think of it in those terms, but it worked for me because I would have a communication then with the energy, which usually turned out to be an emotion, and I would ask the energy what it was, and it would tell me what the emotion was. So like depression, anxiety, fear, whatever it was, and then I would have a conversation with the emotion and ask it, why am I feeling this way? What's the message? Why are you here? And it was very, very enlightening, I have to say, because I started doing that for any feelings that came up, particularly when I felt really depressed. And when I sat with my depression and I got down to the root of it, it was that I was not being true to myself. That was the root of my depression, that I had gone through lots of different things, and I had built up different coping mechanisms, and I had all these old programming layers and fears and all this other sort of stuff that was on top of who I really was, my authentic self. And I was depressed because I was people pleasing. I was doing all these different behaviors that weren't me. And it was such a an awakening, actually, to get to that point, to discover that that was what my energy system was trying to tell me, that that was the message, that I wasn't being true to me, I wasn't living the life that was mine. Now this didn't take, like, this wasn't overnight, this discovery, because there was a lot of different levels and layers that I needed to get down to and work through in order to come to the root of my depression. But I did want to mention that it can be done, and you can get relief from feeling depressed, and all the associated symptoms with it, like the lethargy and the apathy and not wanting to do anything or look after yourself, or anything like that, or the despair, the hopelessness, feeling like a burden, all this sort of stuff. Personally, for me, the energy root was something that I found very beneficial, something that I learned to do myself just by sitting with myself and going into my emotions. And that is how I basically cured, I would say, cured my depression. And I feel like this is very accessible, that anybody can do this. Anybody can sit with themselves and connect into their bodies and just go into that energy to try and discover what that energy is trying to tell them. And the only thing to say about this is that it does require courage. It does require a lot of courage to go into those deep, dark places within yourself that maybe you don't want to go to, maybe that you've buried for a long, long time. That it does require courage to go into what I usually call the shadow, those parts of yourself that maybe you don't even know about them because they're buried deep in your subconscious, they're repressed, there's things from childhood, all those sorts of things, the darker things that you don't want to have a look at. And that's why I'm saying that it does require courage to go into those places that you have not looked at before. But the reward then is worth it, because you do get emotional freedom. You do get freedom from feeling depressed. And now I have to say that I do have such high highs now and feelings of euphoria and joy and contentment, like I hadn't had before. Going into all these emotions and doing the energy work and things like that, and basically reconnecting with myself. So I just wanted to come on here and talk to you about that, and to let you know a little bit about my story and my background. My background is also in mental health. I studied psychology and have a master's in mental health, so this is a topic that is very close to my heart. And I have a business called Empowered Goddess Healing. And this is what I do in session, working with the angels, going into emotions. So I wanted to put that out there as well to increase my brand awareness, and let you know that I do offer sessions that I call shadow work sessions to work on things like this, such as depression. We basically dive in deep into your emotions and have a look at what the energy has to say. And this is a video that's kicking off my basically mental health awareness series. I also wanted to do some light language and angelic energy healing videos as well that I'm going to do over the next while, targeting different mental health issues, just to give you some relief if it is that something that you're going through right now, to offer you that alternative if you, like me, had been through the system, the medical system and the counseling, and found that didn't really work for you. I wanted to offer an alternative, and also to give you kind of some insights into the sessions that I do one-on-one, because I will be doing a demonstration, or basically like an angelic energy healing, but it'll be a mini one, just to give you an idea of what happens when you do come to me for a session, because I always get that feedback from clients that they're not sure what to expect from me. So I wanted to give you a little bit of snapshots of my sessions. And just to say, those sessions are going to be for the collective, so I'll be tuning into all those energies of the people who watch the video. Whereas if you come to me in session, and one-on-one session, it will be me tuning into your energy, so it's much more individualized, and we can work from there. So that's pretty much it that I wanted to let you know. Thank you so much for being here, for tuning in, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.